History will tell you Drake lost a rap battle to Kendrick Lamar, took the L, and quietly went back to the drawing board. That is exactly the lie his PR machine needs you to believe. The truth is much darker. That battle didn't just hurt his pride, it triggered the slow-motion collapse of a decade-long music monopoly. Right now, wrapped up in federal RICO allegations, a devastating Bloomberg gambling exposé, and an unreleased 20-minute Kendrick track hanging over his head like a guillotine, Drake's master plan is in ashes. Welcome to the final collapse. Drake Aubrey Graham, the most commercially dominant rapper of his generation, billions of streams, a label, a brand, an algorithm he understood better than the engineers who built it. For a decade, he didn't just play the music industry, he owned the music industry. And Kendrick Lamar, the quiet one, the one who made albums like he was filing reports with the universe. Critical darling, commercial underperformer by Drake's numbers, but unimpeachable in authenticity. In 2024, they collided, and everyone thought it was rap beef, two guys trading bars, summer entertainment. It wasn't. It was a surgical deconstruction of a machine. Kendrick wasn't just attacking Drake the rapper, he was pulling back the curtain on Drake the product. And what he exposed, what is still unraveling right now in early 2026, is something that goes so far beyond music. It's reaching into federal courts, gambling fraud investigations, and bot farm RICO lawsuits. This isn't beef anymore. This is a building collapsing in slow motion, and we are standing on the street below, watching it fall. But this wasn't random. Here's the first thing you need to understand about Drake psychologically. He is a control architect. Everything in his career, and I mean everything, has been calibrated. The emotional confessionals that made women love him, calculated vulnerability, a studied softness deployed at precise moments to disarm critics and weaponize sympathy. The streaming dominance, not just talent, an infrastructure, playlist placement, label leverage, release timing engineered to kill competing albums. The beef response timing, not reactive, mapped out. Drake doesn't operate on instinct, he operates on strategy. Or he did. And the reason 2024 broke him isn't simply because Kendrick had better bars. It's because Kendrick understood Drake's system and built a weapon specifically designed to make that system destroy itself. Think about how Not Like Us was deployed. It wasn't just a diss track, it was a social engineering event. Kendrick dropped it on a Friday. He let it breathe over a weekend. He watched it become a stadium chant at Coachella. He watched LeBron James, a man tattooed on Drake's body, dance to it harder than he's ever danced to anything Drake released. And Drake said nothing. Now, in the world of psychological power dynamics, silence has two interpretations. Either you are above the attack, unbothered, it didn't land, or you are so completely destroyed by it that you have no functional response. Which one was it? The Iceman rollout answered that question for us. In July 2025, Drake launched a live stream series, dramatic episodes, cinematic visuals, a narrative about an artist being hunted by industry powers, a man carrying a red button, metaphorical evidence of a great conspiracy against him. It was ambitious, it was impressive, and it was terrified, because you only build that kind of elaborate justification structure if you are trying to explain a loss you cannot emotionally accept. The album was called Iceman. He was going to be cold, frozen, unmoved, above the wreckage. And yet, he's been rewriting it for months. That is not someone who is cold. That is someone who is paralyzed. Now let's connect the dots, because this is where the story stops being about rap and starts being about money, manipulation, and legal exposure. Bloomberg Businessweek, not a gossip account, not a fan page, not a Reddit thread. Bloomberg dropped an investigation that Drake's camp reportedly did not see coming, and it is devastating in the most precise, clinical way. Their team analyzed 500 hours of live gambling footage. 500 hours. 25 stake-affiliated streamers on the Kick platform. Hundreds of sessions. Thousands of spins. And what they found? On casino games owned by Stake's parent company, games where Stake controls the outcome, Drake was hitting major jackpots at approximately 4 times the normal rate. 4 times. The average player hits a major jackpot roughly once every 10,000 spins. Drake was hitting them once every 2,500 on those specific games. But here's the detail that removes all doubt. On games that Stake doesn't control, third-party casino titles, Drake's win rate was completely average, ordinary, unremarkable. Let me say that again clearly. Stake-controlled games, 4 times the normal win rate. Third-party games he cannot control, totally average.
That gap is not luck. That gap is not skill. That gap has one explanation:
And Bloomberg found a single session that puts it all under a microscope. Drake is streaming. He's losing. 82 consecutive minutes on third-party games, bleeding money in front of a live audience. Then, Stake co-founder Ed Craven walks onto the stream, deposits $500,000 into Drake's account, suggests, casually, on camera, that Drake switch over to a Stake-owned game. Within 1 hour of switching, Drake hits 4 massive jackpots. 4 in 60 minutes. And then Craven reportedly tells another streamer to clip those winning moments, package them with the Stake logo prominently displayed, and push them across social media. They were not gambling. They were producing content. Manufactured wins, manufactured excitement, manufactured proof that Stake makes you rich, aimed at millions of fans who would see those clips, believe Drake was just that lucky, and go open an account. But this is where it becomes something much darker than embarrassment. There is now an active RICO lawsuit filed January 2026 alleging that Drake and associates connected to his wider network used Stake's financial infrastructure to fund social media botting operations. The same machine allegedly rigging gambling outcomes may also have been artificially inflating Drake's streaming numbers and social media presence for years. And now, the irony that should break your brain, Drake filed a 117-page lawsuit accusing Universal Music Group of using bots to inflate Kendrick's Not Like Us streaming numbers. That lawsuit was dismissed by a federal judge. Drake accused his opponent of the exact thing he was allegedly doing himself. Every weapon he threw at Kendrick came back and hit him directly in the face. This is where it gets dangerous. But here's what nobody is talking about. Not the commentators, not the podcasters, not even the people covering the Bloomberg story. The motive. Why did Drake allegedly need all of this? Why would the most commercially dominant rapper on the planet need rigged gambling streams and bot farms and manufactured wins? Because his foundation, the real foundation below the brand and the streams and the algorithm, was already crumbling. And that collapse had started long before Kendrick dropped a single bar. This story isn't about 2024. It goes back years. And once you understand what was already broken, everything that's happening right now stops looking like bad luck and starts looking like an inevitable collapse that was always coming. The real question isn't whether Drake can survive this. The real question is, was the version of Drake we believed in ever real at all? Let me start with Noah 40 Shabib, because this is the piece that almost no one in this conversation is giving the weight it deserves. 40 is the producer who built Drake's soul. Take Care, Nothing Was the Same, those albums don't sound like anything else in rap history. That atmospheric, drowning, emotionally suffocating production style, the sound that made Drake feel like something genuinely different, that was 40. And 40 has multiple sclerosis. His health challenges have kept him largely absent from Drake's recent creative work. Think about what that means in the context of the biggest rap battle of the decade. Drake walked into a generational war without the person who understood his sonic identity better than anyone alive. He went to war without his weapon maker. Now add the ghostwriting dimension. We knew about Quentin Miller, that's not new. But what is now spreading across commentary spaces, the deeper picture emerging from insiders, is the scope. One commentator used a word that has taken over the entire conversation: Frankenstein. Drake is the monster. The writers, producers, engineers, strategists, they are the scientists. They build him, they animate him, they put him together piece by piece and send him into the world. And the world looks at the creature and believes it made itself. Now apply that to the 2024 battle. If Drake's diss tracks were assembled by a committee of ghostwriters, and the patterns, the cadences, the research errors all suggest they were, then Kendrick's bar about fighting one man versus 20 wasn't hyperbole. It was literally accurate. Kendrick was fighting an entire room of writers wearing one man's face, and he still dismantled every single one of them. The psychological damage of that realization is something Drake cannot process publicly. Because to admit the ghostwriting is to admit the entire persona is constructed. And to admit the persona is constructed is to destroy the only thing that was keeping the fans loyal. Now let's go deeper. Drake has one of the most sophisticated ego defense architectures in entertainment. Watch how he responds to criticism historically. He doesn't confront it directly. He absorbs it, reframes it, and repackages it as evidence of his own greatness. Fake love wasn't about admitting he'd been hurt. It was about positioning himself as the man smart enough to see through fake people. No friends in the industry wasn't vulnerability. It was preemptive status protection. I don't need you because I was already above you. He turns wounds into weapons. That's the move. But what happens when the wound is too large to reframe? What happens when the loss is so public, so documented, so culturally embedded that there is no psychological judo move that transforms it? You get what we are watching right now. A man in a studio rewriting the same album for the fourth time, unable to find a version of himself that is both honest enough to feel real and protected enough to survive. Give Me a Hug shows exactly this fracture. Multiple bars about people wanting to see him fail, real pain, real vulnerability. You can hear the wound. And then, within 30 seconds, he pivots, claims the beef means nothing, says he's trying to get the party started. In the same song, he contradicts himself completely, and that contradiction destroys both messages. If you're trying to party, why are you bleeding in front of us? If the bleeding is real, why are you smiling 15 seconds later? What we're watching is a man who cannot commit to either truth. He knows that full vulnerability costs him the alpha positioning his entire brand depends on. He knows that full hitmaker mode will be seen as avoidance, as denial, as someone who doesn't understand how deep the damage goes. He is caught between two identities, and neither one is winning. And then there's the collateral damage. Look at Momo Boyd, a singer, a talented artist trying to build a career. She features on Baby Keem's album. She is working with PG Lang, and suddenly she is hit with coordinated hate campaigns. Industry plant, fake. The language is identical across accounts. The timing is synchronized. That coordination doesn't come from organic fan behavior. It comes from a system allegedly still operational even as the RICO lawsuit gets filed. And that is the detail that separates this from regular beef behavior. You don't attack a young woman who has nothing to do with you unless you are acting from fear, unless you are so terrified of what PG Lang is becoming, of the world they're building in contrast to your collapsing one, that you need to poison the soil around them. That is not the behavior of someone who doesn't care. That is the behavior of someone who cares about nothing else. Now, I need you to sit with a reframe. Because this whole story, the Bloomberg investigation, the bot farms, the album delays, the ghostwriting, the gambling fraud, it all looks like a man making bad decisions. And on the surface, it is. But why did he need all of it? Why does the most commercially successful rapper of the streaming era allegedly need fake gambling wins? Why does the man with 1 billion streams allegedly need bot farms? Here is the answer. Because the streaming era was built on this. For a decade, the entire industry has been operating on manufactured numbers, playlist manipulation, bot-inflated streams, algorithmic gaming, fake cultural relevance. Drake wasn't an outlier in this system. He was the king of it. He understood how to leverage every mechanism better than anyone else. And what Kendrick Lamar did, consciously or not, was prove that authenticity still breaks through the algorithm. Not Like Us was not playlist optimized. It was not engineered. It was not algorithmically timed. It was a cultural event that the algorithm chased, because real resonance moves differently than manufactured resonance. You can feel the difference. And when the culture felt that difference in real time, when they heard something that landed with full weight versus something that was placed in front of them, they chose every time. This is what Bloomberg exposed at a mechanical level. The wins were manufactured, the excitement was manufactured, the image was manufactured. And at some point, the audience, even the audience that loved the image, starts to feel the hollowness. They can't name it, they can't explain it, but Mal, a podcaster, an OVO loyalist to his core, sitting in a room being asked to name a Drake classic, going silent. That silence is the answer. You don't go silent because you've logically concluded someone has no classics. You go silent because somewhere deep in your listening history, you feel that something is missing. And now, thanks to everything being exposed, you have language for what was missing. The man wasn't fully there. The creature was assembled in a lab. And now the lab is being raided. But here is the twist that reframes everything. Kendrick Lamar allegedly has been holding a 20-minute version of Euphoria for over a year. 15 beat switches, a complete deconstruction not just of Drake's rap career, but of the machine itself. And people close to the situation are saying it has specific references that may match in detail what Bloomberg published months after the track was reportedly recorded. If that's true, Kendrick didn't just win the battle. He had intelligence, an information network that was tracking Drake's gambling arrangements, his bot operations, his legal strategy, possibly before Drake's own legal team fully understood the exposure. And Kendrick made a choice. He shelved the nuclear weapon and let Drake's own actions do the work instead. That is not the move of a rapper. That is the move of a strategist. J. Cole saw part of this and walked away. Remember the apology? The internet roasted him, soft, folded, couldn't handle it. But look at Cole now. He looked at the board, he counted the pieces, he saw Kendrick's arsenal on one side and Drake's entire committee of writers on the other. He calculated that he would be fighting a ghost, a Frankenstein with 40 hands, while Kendrick was already inside the walls. He walked away. And insiders are now saying the shelved version of Euphoria had a full section dedicated to ending J. Cole. When Cole apologized, Kendrick showed mercy. He removed the blade. Drake didn't apologize. Drake doubled down, sued UMG, continued the bot operations, kept streaming rigged casino games. And Kendrick still has the blade. That is leverage. That is the reason for the album delays that no press release will ever admit. Drake is not rewriting Iceman because he can't find the right creative direction. He is rewriting Iceman because he cannot put a single bar on record without calculating what Kendrick might already have documented about him. He is writing an album while someone else holds the detonator. So where does this actually go? Let's be precise. Let's not be dramatic for the sake of it. Let's follow the logical architecture of what is in motion right now. The RICO lawsuit moves forward through 2026. If it proceeds to discovery, which means both sides are legally compelled to hand over financial records, communications, platform data, then the bot farm allegations go from claims in a filing to documents in a courtroom. At that point, Drake's legal team has a decision to make: settle quietly and absorb the narrative damage, or fight it publicly and risk the full scope of what discovery might surface. Neither option is clean. Meanwhile, the UMG appeal, 117 pages filed in January 2026, is crawling through the legal system. That process takes years in the best conditions. The Iceman rollout was built around that legal case as its thematic foundation. As long as the appeal is unresolved, the album's narrative sits in suspended animation. He can't close the story because the story isn't closed. He can't reference the legal case without drawing attention to the fact that he lost the first round. He can't ignore it because the entire album concept was built on it. And the album itself, now reportedly in its fourth complete incarnation, carries the name of a season. An album called Iceman, dropping in spring, at the earliest. I want you to feel the weight of that image. A man who wanted to be cold, untouchable, frozen above the wreckage of what Kendrick did to him, dropping an album about winter, in the middle of spring. Even the metaphor has betrayed him. Now let me tell you what this means beyond Drake, because this story, and I need you to hear this clearly, is not ultimately about one rapper losing a beef. It is about the death of a decade-long operating system. For 10 years, the music industry ran on manufactured presence, bot-inflated streaming numbers, algorithmic positioning, playlist placement that turned cultural engineering into a substitute for genuine cultural resonance. Drake was not the only one using this system. He was the one who used it best. And what Kendrick proved, what Bloomberg documented, what the federal courts are now beginning to investigate, is that the foundation underneath that system was rotted through. Every label is watching this. Every major act built on algorithmic dominance rather than authentic resonance is watching this. Because if the system breaks, and it is breaking, then the artists who survive
are the ones who didn't need the system, the ones who could stand in front of an audience with nothing but what they actually made and hold the room. Baby Keem's Casino album is doing real numbers. PG Lang is expanding. Kendrick is not on Instagram ranting. He is not on live streams gambling. He is not filing lawsuits or rewriting albums for the fourth time. He is building, quietly, precisely, in the same way he always has. And that contrast between what is collapsing and what is rising is becoming impossible to ignore. But here's the thing I want to leave you with, because this is the part that will keep you thinking past this video. Kendrick has the 20-minute version. He still has it. He chose not to drop it after Not Like Us destroyed the culture. He chose not to drop it after Drake's UMG lawsuit got dismissed. He chose not to drop it after the Bloomberg investigation published. He is still choosing not to drop it. Which means one of two things. Either the mercy is genuine, the lesson has been delivered, the blade stays sheathed. Or, and this is the one that should keep you up at night, he is waiting for the right moment. Not the moment when Drake is down, the moment Drake does something that makes the release necessary, when Drake disses someone on Iceman, when he tries to reclaim the throne publicly, when he makes a move that forces Kendrick's hand. Because then, dropping a 20-minute track that may contain verifiable evidence of fraud before Bloomberg published it doesn't just end a rap career. It becomes an event, a cultural moment that rewrites the entire timeline of how this story is told. Right now, Drake is standing on a landmine and Kendrick has the detonator. And the longer Iceman sits in the studio unfinished, the longer those lyrics get rewritten and second-guessed and pulled apart by a team of writers trying to find the version that doesn't step on the wire, the more the world understands who is actually in control of this situation. And it is not the man with the most streams. It is the man with the vault. If that track ever drops, nothing that came before it will prepare you for what follows. Stay locked in, because this story is not over. It has not even reached its most important chapter yet. Drop your answer in the comments right now. Does Drake release Iceman knowing the landmine is still live? Does Kendrick drop the 20-minute cut, or is the mercy kill worse than the execution? And the question nobody wants to ask out loud, is Drake the last king of the streaming era, or the first casualty of the world that comes after it? Tell me what you think. Like the video if this hit different than what you expected. Subscribe and turn on notifications, because when this story moves, it moves fast, and you need to be here when it does. I appreciate you riding this out with me. This is history, live, unedited, and we are watching the pages burn. Stay locked in. I'll see you in the next one.